who am I and why the heck should you care what I have to say, right? I mean, some of you know me, some of you don't. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me, but first off, one of the big reasons I'm here is we are helping to protect 1 million people. That is a goal of ours. And through the education is how we're gonna do that. So about me, I've been in IT for actually well over 20 years, even though I don't feel like it's been that long, but it has. I've spoke at numerous industry events over the years for managed service providers and security, and also in the physical security space as well. I spent 6 years in DC, working in full-time ministry and management at a church and school, and learned a whole lot during the DC sniper shootings and 9/11 while I was up there. And the one thing that I figured out is I really like helping people, which is why when I moved back here to my hometown and started CTS, that was a goal of mine. It wasn't about being a business owner and making money as much as it was to help educate people, help people be safe in this world so that they can do what they're good at, right? So that's a big part of it. I'm also, I'm on several boards. One that I'm really proud of is NextGen. NextGen is a channel company event. There's usually 1,000+ companies like us that go to these events. And this particular one is for emerging technologies and trends within the industry. Obviously today, the industry is turning more towards a focus on cybersecurity and compliance as we're seeing the government get more involved. In fact, you now have to turn over incident reports to the federal government if ransomware is part of it. As the federal government is getting involved, obviously requirements are going to change, which is one of the reasons we're here, and it gives a chance for the industry to evolve and change and bring new products and services. So being part of that is in my opinion, is huge because we're able to see what's going on and plan for those trends and keep our customers right here in Lynchburg, Virginia at a better level of security than they could be anywhere else. So we have won, CTS has won. It's not me, it's the amazing people that we have there and the partners, just like Richard's, that we partner with that help us. But we have won multiple awards and we've been ranked in the top 501 MSPs globally. And it's a big thing because you think your customers, oh, they like you and they do business, but it doesn't mean you're really good at it. But when your peers, the other people who do this, are the ones who help decide who that's going to be. For CTS, being right here in Lynchburg, I absolutely love it because we're not in DC or California or Silicon Valley, but we're able to be at a level that they are, if not better, in my opinion, for a lot of them. So that's who I am. I don't know if that's why you should listen to me or not, but that's what I am. That's what I'm doing here. So what's going on? This is big. Cyber insurance companies are losing money right now. Insurance companies don't like losing money, do they? So why are they losing money? Well, it's a significant amount of money, which is why we're seeing the requirements change. So why? Ransomware risk is increasing considerably. Risk response cost is increasing. Increasing replacement costs and inadequate cybersecurity hygiene, lack of incident response plans, which I think Ben's going to talk a little bit about here in a minute, and of course, business interruption is all part of why the cost is going up and why insurance companies are having to change their requirements and the price that goes along with it. Ransomware has increased on the average payment being at $300,000 in 2020, which is an increase in the last 6 months in 2022 to almost double, 71% more. So the average ransom, $900,000, seems a bit excessive. I think that would shut most businesses down, right? Again, another reason the cost is going up. And it's not just ransomware, right? We've all heard of this. The business email compromises and the risk related to clicking on something that you were not supposed to click on. And with this, we're seeing a much larger increase because people are working from home, thank you COVID. The other thing we're seeing a lot of is, I don't know how many of you have a cell phone, and I'm sure you don't check your business email on it, right? And if you do, I'm sure you have some type of protection on your phone, right? You do, right? So I would hope so. Most people would say no, and that's another reason that we have to look at what we're doing and actually have policies and procedures, which the insurance companies are ripe for wanting you to have before they're willing to insure you, so that your level of risk can come down. So in 2020, 65% of organizations suffered a business email compromise. 2021, 77% of organizations suffered a business email compromise. The FBI said the amount of money lost to businesses in email compromises, scams, continue to grow year after year, 65% increase. So think about that for a second. Just from July to December of 2021, 65%, that's over double. So you think any industry, if you saw them double their profitability or double the size of their company, that would be impressive, right? So these threat actors, bad actors, and hackers have a lot more incentive to continue to do this because this can be careers for them, especially in other countries. So risk keeps increasing, and here's just a few reasons why, if you guys can see that up there. I won't go through all of them, but there's so many little things that we can do differently to help protect us as we move forward in an industry that's getting more and more increasingly dangerous. It's almost like warfare when you go online or have a device, right? So, rising response cost is the cost associated with responding to a cyber incident are rising. Well, what does that mean? So, you have an incident, your data was compromised, your customer's data, and let's say, I don't really have any data that's a big deal for that, right? It's not a big thing. Well, if they compromise and they get your list of people, your list of friends, and then businesses, acquaintances, customers, and they start sending them emails as if they're you that have those clickable links in there. So then these businesses are getting compromised because you had poor cybersecurity hygiene, really. And so that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. So the cost of this, you have to go in and provide for the data that's compromised, or you should go in and provide a whole litany of things to see which data, who was hacked, what emails were sent, were any emails sent, how it happened, not to mention paying for, like LifeLock for all the people who got compromised for 2 years is pretty much a standard in that area. So replacement costs, 44% of businesses plan to increase their tech budget up to 6% from the prior year. 1 in 4 businesses increased their IT spend in 2020 due to a recent security incident. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ben. Take it over there.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Ben. I have been in IT for about the same amount of time as Tommy, about 25 years. If you don't count the time before the internet, when that was a little bit longer. I have concentrated mostly on cybersecurity in the past 3 years while at CTS. Really dedicated my life and knowledge to knowing what the hackers are doing, how they're doing it, and what they're doing with your data. It's pretty impressive. Most of people, when you say dark web, they think, oh, that's something in Hollywood. But it's actually real, and you can go on there to these hackers' websites and see companies that have been ransomwared and see their data is downloadable for free. It's the people that did not pay the second ransom, they got their files back, but there's usually a twofold attack. There's getting your data back. So once that data is out there, anybody can download it, and it doesn't cost you a thing. That's where I spend my time. I want to know how they're doing it, how they're actually getting to businesses. So many events we see. Tommy mentioned cyber hygiene, and that's something as simple as people changing their passwords. Many people don't do that. They don't change their password. They leave the same one that they have, and they use it for multiple different sites. So that site gets compromised, and what happens then is the hacker takes that password and logs into whatever they can, your bank account, your email, and then they send out email to your friends and family. like Tommy said, we have a bunch of remote users, and they're working at home, and they're not actually protected by the same things that are at your businesses, like commercial firewalls, content filters. So when they're coming back into the office, it's like they're tracking in their muddy feet into your office. Anything they picked up while at home, like a virus, compromise, hackers, that's coming right into your front doors. That's bypassing any of your security, any of your firewalls, and once they're in there, they can pretty much have a field day with your data. It says only 23% of businesses surveyed have actually an incident response plan. And you may be asking, what is an incident response plan? And what that is basically a series of steps that a business takes once they are ransomwared or once they're attacked. It's things that need to happen in a certain order and by a certain people. I kind of equate it to trying to make a fire escape plan while the building's on fire. You're just typically not going to do that, and if you do, good luck to you. So 77% of businesses have no plans or anything written down. And if it's not written down, it's not going to do you much good. Tommy mentioned business interruption, and what that is, it's basically boils down to there's an increase in the amount it costs insurance companies once this attack happens. They're paying out larger ransoms. They're paying out, like Tommy said, forensic experts, and that can cost you a lot of money. And I think, Tommy, you are going to go into a little bit more about that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, insurance companies I don't think like paying out when they really shouldn't have to. So, if you were an insurance company, knowing what you just learned, what would you do? What would you do if you were an insurance company and you were losing money?
I'd start looking at my bottom line and figuring out ways that I can eliminate things
Right.
that were costing me money.
Great
And
lead-in.
focus on the people that were making me money and give them better service.
Right, and deny people who aren't at the level they need to be so that you'll have the right customers, right? So renewals are getting denied. I know in the industry, I talked earlier about being part of these industry events. About a year ago, several really good IT companies that I know were denied, the actual IT company itself, because we are considered very high risk. So we have to have even higher level than what most people see behind the scenes, because we have access to so much data that criminals want. So our level is ridiculous. It's kind of like being in a bank. There's so many different things that you have to manage. So they're getting denied. And to get insurance and to get a renewal, instead of saying that you are doing these things, you have to prove it. And I think the more and more that we see people get denied or insurance companies losing money, they're going to be at a place where you're going to have to prove the things you're doing before you get renewed. We have never been denied insurance at CTS, and our customers, none that we have that I'm aware of, have ever been denied insurance either. So what are they doing? Underwriters are tightening up the standards, right? So premiums are on the rise. Standalone cyber coverage has increased 92% in 2021. 92%, almost double. And I did say cyber insurance, not healthcare. Cyber insurance. So as a business owner, what can you do? Well, grab something to write with, because we're going to get into those 3 steps we talked about at the beginning. First off, make sure that you are covered. And if you're not covered, or you don't currently have cyber security or cyber insurance, then Jeff's the guy you're going to talk to at Richard's Insurance Group. Second thing, prepare for your renewal of your policy. So make sure you're covered and that you can get or be renewed. Avoid being a victim, right? That's a big one. Avoid being a victim. Right. make sure you are covered. What does that look like? We need cyber insurance policies and we need cybersecurity policies because of ransomware risk increasing, because of response costs, because of replacement costs, because of cybersecurity hygiene, lack of response planning like Ben was talking about, and business interruption. Those are why we need to have policies in place. I think it's important to understand what Ben was saying earlier, and I think it's a good way to look at it. You're required to have a fire exit plan in some buildings, depending where you are. So imagine there's no barrier to entry, there's no fire authority in the IT world. You have to have a license to be an electrician. You have to have a license to come work in the plumbing in my house. You do not have to have a license to be an IT company. So all IT companies are not made the same, right? So you need to make sure you're partnering with the right companies so that you can have the right policies in place. So do you have cybersecurity policies that you're aware of that are written down? Do you have that fire exit plan the fire marshal says you have to have in case there's an incident? Because if you don't, that's something you need to look at, because very soon you're going to be required to. Cybersecurity insurance is not standard. There is no standard cybersecurity insurance. I don't need cybersecurity insurance. That's one I've heard so many times, and I'm just like, wow, I have done a really poor job of explaining cybersecurity to you if that's how you feel about having coverage. I know I don't go and drive my car without coverage, and I know that I would not go without health insurance, and I couldn't imagine going without cyber insurance as well, because all businesses are at risk. Small business, big business, cloud business, all businesses of any size. And a lot of times I also hear people, I don't have any data, I don't have anything they want. But you do. Your contact list is enough to get them into somebody else. So you being that piece of the puzzle that they needed to hack a much bigger organization, or even not only your organization, but your customers, your friends, your family, anyone. Everyone needs some type of cybersecurity coverage. Make sure you have a policy. All right, prepare to get renewed for your policy or get a policy. Insurance companies hate paying ransoms. They hate paying ransoms and denying renewals because of your cyber setup. Once you've been denied, it's much harder to get insurance. So, how do they access your network or assess your network? You guys have probably seen these before, a questionnaire, a whole bunch of questions, right? And you probably think to yourself, okay, I'm just going to send this to my IT company and they're going to fill it out for me, right? Which is the wrong way to think, because you're the one that's responsible for these things. Now, granted, there are things that they can help you answer, but overall, knowing where you stand with these questions is going to be important. So I'm going to pick 5 questions that we're going to talk about. So here's a simple 5-question test for you. Do you have MFA on email and sensitive information, multi-factor authentication? So as you're looking and think, am I in a place where I can receive a policy or renewal? These are 5 questions. Do you have MFA? Do you have backups? And are you sure they're working? Now that's a big one. We've had multiple times where we've come in, because hackers are smart. They get in, first thing they do is they leave something later. So if they get kicked out a month or 2 down the road, it's going to let them back in, right? So that's part of once you've had an event, the cost of making sure that you can continue to operate, not have another event, which is part of what the insurance costs we talked about earlier are. But they've gotten in and they've said, okay, we're going to encrypt the backup first. So now if you kick us out, we can come back in, and we're going to encrypt your backup. So then you go to run your backup and your backup doesn't work, right? So now you have to pay the ransom, or all your data's gone. And it's not just gone, it's for sale and then for free after you pay the ransom to anybody that wants it. Do you have up-to-date antivirus installed on all computers? Not just the ones you use, all computers. Because you're only as strong as your weakest link, like the old TV show. You are the weakest link. So you have that one computer that you don't use that much that's out of date, and you're just like, I don't even care, but it's still plugged into your network. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. Do you have written, documented breach response plan, your fire plan? Do you have that? Do you have up-to-date active firewall technology? It's important, up-to-date. Firewalls used to be a thing where, you set it and forget it, right? In today's world, that's not the case. There's a whole group of software suites, all kinds of things that can help protect you, and that's ever changing, right? So then you think, you got a lot of people that work from home now, right? Even you. How many of you, your employees or yourself, your home firewall you bought at Walmart, and that's protecting you, right? There's obviously not going to be up-to-date active technology involved there. And so again, you're accessing that same data. So if that Walmart firewall is secure enough for you, then why wouldn't you just have the same thing at your office? Obviously, you're going to want that. So how can you check for these things yourself? Are you prompted when you're accessing your email or sensitive information? Are you prompted for that two-factor? Push to your phone, code in your text, app comes up, you click, yes, that's me. If you're doing that on the sensitive information or email, then you could check yes to that. Do you have backups? And are you sure they are working? Right? So how do you do that? Do you test your backups? And when I say test your backups, it's not an automated system that says, yes, the backup was complete. Because it can still encrypt after that, right? Or we've seen backups that are complete, says they're complete, we go to turn them on, and it won't boot up. So for our customers, one of the things we do every single week, every backup is spun up in the cloud, tested, check that the data is there, it is active, and then back out of it. That's documenting what data was touched in that backup when it was done, right? Because through the whole process of understanding that you're going to have to turn this data over eventually to your insurance company. So go back to that questionnaire we talked about. You're checking those boxes. Imagine that each box you need, whether it's you or somebody in your organization, to give you something that proves it, and not just my IT guy said they're doing it, or I know they've got me covered, right? Because remember, there's no barrier of entry, there's no license, right? So, are you up to date and active with antivirus installed on all your computers? 20% of networks have missing antivirus. I personally, a company here in Lynchburg, decided they were using us for IT, decided to hire somebody internally and let them manage it completely. It's no problem. I think it was 2.5 to 3 years later, we get a call and they're like, hey, we're having some issues. Can you guys come out and look at it? And we're like, sure. Do you want us to work with your IT guy? They're like, no. So we just want you to see what you see. We literally got in there and over half the computers did not have antivirus, as an example. On the server, we saw Chinese letters popping up across the bottom as we're doing. There was an active event happening right then. And so anyway, it wasn't, and I shouldn't say it wasn't, the employee on the IT side was so incredibly busy. How could he keep up with all the different pieces, right? This is a whole business by itself, just doing what we do, where he's just putting out fires all day. So how can he grow in his knowledge and be able to manage all of these pieces when he has so many other things to do? So 20% of networks are missing it. Well, how can you check to see that you actually have antivirus? It would be to go look at the lower right hand of your computer, if it's a Windows computer, and see if you have anything there running or active that says anything about antivirus. And if you don't, then you should reach out and talk to somebody about making sure that you do have antivirus on there. Do you have any written document breach response plan? I know we've talked about that, and as an owner, it's your responsibility. It's not your IT company's, it's your responsibility. And if you don't know that you have one, reach out to whoever's in charge of your IT and ask them to send it to you. You'll find out real quick whether or not you have one or not. And of course, do you have up-to-date firewall and active subscriptions on that firewall? So if you're not paying for something like Antivirus or a subscription on your firewall, then you most likely don't have it. All right. You are responsible for the answers, not your IT company. You're the one that's going to be in trouble. You might bring them up there or sue them, but ultimately it's your responsibility. So avoid having your claim denied, which we've seen most recently. You can Google it. There's an insurance company who's trying to, or did deny a claim for a large group, and they're also trying to say that because that questionnaire was answered, yes, I have MFA, that they were under the impression that they did have MFA everywhere they were supposed to. But the question read, do you have MFA? Yes, because the person said, hey, every time, like once a month I go into my email, I have to click this thing, put this code in, so yes, I have it. Well, their management system, the database, call it their QuickBooks or whatever you want to call it, other information did not have MFA on. That information was compromised. So sensitive information, not just email. So they're saying that that was misleading, right? So for us, when we get a question like that in an insurance document, we redline it like an attorney, and we put, yes, MFA on this, not on this. We recommend doing it on this. Put these things down there, and it's up to you as the business owner to decide how you want to answer that question. Because again, we are here to help, and we're providing these services for you, but ultimately it's your responsibility, right?
Okay. So, step 3, avoid being a victim. Some of you may be saying, how do I actually avoid becoming the victim of a cybercrime? And believe it or not, it's actually possible. You also may be thinking, well, I've already done step 1 and 2. I have cyber insurance. I'm fine. I really don't need to invest in cybersecurity. And I should be fine, okay, right? Yeah. Well, you have health insurance. And just because you have health insurance, does that mean that you would do something to jeopardize your health? Does that mean you would walk through in a room with that on the door? Probably not, right? That would probably leave you sick for quite some time. It'd be risky. And ransomware is very similar to that. It can leave your business sick for a very long time. Even with cyber insurance, you won't get the reputation and the trust back that you established with your customers. I always like to think of it as, who here remembers when Target was breached and all that credit card data, right? Well, sure, they had insurance, and that covered a lot of their expenses and everything, but you as their customer, didn't you find it kind of hard to actually go pay with your credit card at Target again? And wasn't it kind of annoying that, yeah, they gave you LifeLock, but that just means you had to keep an eye on your credit, for years afterwards. And that's stuff that you're just not going to get back with insurance. Some of you may say, and I've heard this before, I don't have any data that a hacker would want. I'm not a hospital with patient data. I'm not a law firm. But I want you guys to think about the companies that you interact with. Your customers. Hackers will use your company to infect others. What that usually looks like is in the form of a business email compromise. And what that means is they get into your email and they see, oh, well, I can go ahead and email this company. This is a really big company that I know has a lot of money, and the company that receives your email sees that it's coming from you. It's not coming from a random Gmail account. It's not coming from somewhere other than your inbox. And you're sending it to them, they trust you, and they'll run what you might end up sending them. So I want you guys to imagine, how you would feel if you got a call from your customer or your friends or family saying, why did you send me this link? This has encrypted my entire computer. What do I do? I want you to think about that. In the end, it's 93% of security breaches are preventable. And so how can you avoid being a victim? Well, when it comes down to it, one surefire way is to make sure that someone is inspecting your network at least every 90 days. And so what are they looking for when they're inspecting your network? They're looking for vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, in any sort of risks that may allow a hacker to compromise your computer. And like Tommy said, going in there and making sure that simple things like antivirus is turned on. I remember back in the day, people were turning it off because it slowed their computer down. And so we can't think like that anymore, unfortunately. And I think, Tommy, you have one more thing to talk about, one last thing.
Something you've never thought of, third-party security assessments. That's something that we feel really strongly about. I know other companies, even some here today, feel the same way. So what we do is we not only CTS ourselves, we have a third-party company come in and evaluate our processes, our response plans, the stack of tools, how we have those things set up, and everything that we're doing basically to make sure that we are as tight as we can be and protected as we can be. So we thought about it and we're like, we do all this and we turn all this data over to our insurance company also so that they know what we have. We need to start doing this for our customers too so that we'll understand where they are. So we started doing it for our customers, and that's something that, if somebody's looking to partner with us, that we'll be able to do for them as well. So what does that look like? So our security team, they built basically a tool that allows us to see what a hacker would see if you clicked on an email, right? What can we get to? What information is out there? And we're able to look at that, put together a report that's comprehensive, that will help you decide whether or not you are ready for insurance, whether or not you could go through that same process of an assessment and still qualify for renewal or qualify to get a policy, right? Because if we're able to hand you all of your credentials after one click on an email, there's a problem. Probably not going to get insured. Combined with over 13 different cybersecurity insurance assessments is how we came up with the process. What are we looking for? What is your insurance company looking for? And we look at qualifying for cyber insurance is our minimum level. If a customer or a company does not want to meet that level of requirement, then they can't work with CTS. It's not worth the risk to us or to anybody that we do work for if you can't. But a lot of insurance companies do things differently. That's why we use 13 different cyber assessments from insurance companies to come up with this. So here's what you can do. Get a free third-party cyber insurance readiness assessment. Are you the right person for this? I mean, I think so. I think anybody that, whether you have insurance now and it's got to renew or you don't have it, having somebody come in and look at what you have going on to help you decide whether or not you're ready is a good thing. We always encourage people to not tell their IT company or their IT staff. Just let us do our thing. Send you this. I don't need any credentials. I don't need your admin credentials. I don't need any information. I'm going to be the same as that hacker sitting out there, and come in and check it out and see what you have going on to help you decide what questions you can answer on those renewals. Are you completely protected? Getting your IT and department involved is important. I don't want to try to say that that isn't important, but I think it's important to trust and verify, right? You trust that your security is being handled. but you don't know. So this is a way that we can come in, check it out. If you want us to work with them, happily do that. But it's always fun to kind of see where you really are, right? Without anybody getting ready for it and putting all the antivirus on other things. Something you want to add?
I think it's been really helpful for us, Tom, is that y'all are constantly analyzing our system. And we've had situations where you came and you said this information is out on the dark web or this, and once we identify it, then we go back and we see if there's been damage, and fortunately so far there hasn't. But you've been proactive. And it's not an advertisement for you, but I'm just saying it's an example.
Right.
Of what happens when you have a proactive system. We're not waiting around to see what's going to happen.
No, and I appreciate that, and I think I'll take a little liberty here. And also, I remember we had some things that we noticed that the industry was changing, and there were some security things that we needed to change that was going to have a cost to it, to us, and to customers. We didn't try to go sell this to customers. We go and we turned it on and set it up for everybody. And we'll deal with talking to the customer later about why we had to do it. But we're not going to wait and then have a customer compromise because of a security concern that we could have fixed. So I think that's part of the whole, being in front of it. It's not about just a business for CTS. It's about a partnership. And we go back to our mission, which is to protect 1 million people. So we don't have to install anything. We don't need your admin credentials. We'll analyze your network. We'll meet with you, review the results. We'll give you a simple steps that you can take to protect your data, and we'll do this for you. This is not you coming to CTS as a customer. This is something we're willing to do for you to help you, help educate you, help you figure out where you are, because we don't want to see anybody get compromised. So, right, what can we do now? Well, our mission is to protect 1 million people. So if you're interested, let us know. We'll be happy to set up a third-party cyber insurance readiness assessment. We do a few. It's not something we could just go and do a whole bunch all at once. There is a cost to doing this for us, but we want to do it. We want to help educate people. There's 2 things that I wanted to bring up earlier, and I didn't, but I think now's a good time. Companies here, right here, are getting, are feeling these things we've talked about. We've been brought in by insurance companies. We've been brought in by the police departments to come in after an event. And the things we're seeing, we talk about the email compromises. We had one that we went into, and the gentleman's the owner's personal email. He would email from his work email and sometimes from his Gmail, Yahoo, whatever. And that got compromised. Nothing that we had any access to, but just his personal. So they sat in there and they watched for a while, looked at his email, saw who he was communicating with, could see there was a pending event, sent an email from his email to the bank, and they said, hey, Susie, I hope the kids are doing well. I appreciate everything you guys do. This month when we transfer or ACH this money, which they normally do to a vendor that they use, the vendor has changed their ACH account number from this to this. Is that something you can help me out with before the next transfer? Right. Well, because they were able to see how they communicated with those people previously, the person who got that email had no reason to think that it wasn't them and it wasn't a real thing. So money was transferred out twice. And then the vendors, we ain't gotten paid. Or yet. And like, no, we paid you. No, you didn't. Well, here's the ACH. That's not our account. That's how they found out. Right. So that's just a little example of things that have happened right here. And there's so many small things you can do to help prevent these things from even being possible. And that's one of the reasons that we feel like education is key. We take it as far as it's not just the company owner, but every single one of your employees plays a part in being cyber safe. How can they do that? Education, We have tools that we put in place for them that they can use not only at work but at home to protect their passwords, which is something that I would encourage anybody who hasn't take the opportunity to jump on that webinar next week. And you'll learn a little bit more about how to protect your passwords and only have one and not need all of the other ones and still be secure and encrypted. So with that, it's going to finish up my part of this. If anybody has any.
One of the things we've done with a lot of our customers is we're getting our customers that are selling products to other people, we're getting them to start getting active with talking to those people that are sending them ACH transactions to see how sophisticated they are.
Right. I know I've tried to change it at my bank, and my bank won't do it without a phone call. And then I have to sign a document in the bank.
They're accounting people, they're accounts payable people. They don't have sophisticated protocols in place. And like call an owner of the company, call an officer of the company before you change. And you're aware, because we brought you in on a situation for one of our customers, the perpetrator changed the accounting clerk changed the ACH routing information twice in 2 weeks to the tune of $162,000.
Which should be a red flag, twice in 2 weeks by email.
Sophisticated.
Right.
So we're trying to educate our customers about talking to their vendors.
Absolutely. So the one I was referring to earlier was one of the big mega banks that changed that. You think with all the policies and red tape, they would, but the local bank that I use is, I can't do that, which is great because they, guess what, have response plans. They have cybersecurity hygiene that matters that they enforce. So anyway, something we would love to help you guys with. If anybody wants, just let us know, and we'll be happy to help. And I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff.
And thanks, Ben, and thanks, Tommy, again for having us today and letting us come and talk a little bit about just the nuts and bolts, okay? You've done a great job of talking about the insurance part already. I think you must have gotten your license somewhere in your past. I'm not sure how that happened. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit about cyber insurance, again, on a basic nuts and bolts level and what it is, why it is, and why you might consider engaging in a policy with someone. So we talk about what cyber insurance is. So there are many different types of insurance out there. You have health insurance, life insurance, then you have property and casualty insurance, which is what cyber insurance is. It's a property and casualty form of insurance that was really came on about 5-6 years ago, kind of in the background, what we would call emerging risk at that point. But now it's become a bigger deal. It's in the forefront. You see it in the news all the time, different hacks. I mean, I saw something yesterday about some banks getting hacked. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. So, you know, you think about all your money that's in the cloud. I can't even lay my hand on my money. Is it all gone? You know, it scares you to death. So cyber insurance is basically designed to handle third-party claims. A lot of people that have business insurance in place now, they may have some cyber insurance that's kind of built into their policy. Now, it's not going to be like a standalone policy, and we'll talk about what the differences are. It might have very low limits, and it might only have third-party coverage, which basically means any kind of damage that occurs to someone else through the negligence of the primary insured. So cyber insurance claims also, or cyber policies standalone, they will often have first-party coverage as well. First party is going to cover claims that happen to you as a policyholder, so that you've had a malicious event happen and you've transferred some money out by accident because somebody socially engineered, you know, a vendor's email to you that sent an invoice. And what's so funny about these social engineering things, and we've had clients that go through these exact scenarios, these guys get into your email system, they know when you're expecting these invoices to come. They know what the invoice looks like. They attach that invoice. It may be, and they may change the date. And you're expecting it, and you're on the road, you're working hard through your mobile computer, your cell phone, and you authorize your folks at the office, yeah, go ahead and issue that payment. We're expected, we're good. It's clear. First thing you know, you're out 150 grand or whatever it may be. So those are the kind of claims that would respond to. So if we move on and talk about why you might need cyber insurance. Again, Tom did a great job of explaining all the things that one might want to be insured for in these times. These are the top hits that I found, and they may correlate exactly with what he had. But over the pandemic, folks working from home, unsecured networks, They've got their laptops in. They're working off their neighbor's, router. They're working off their iPads, their phones. So cybercrime was up 600% during the pandemic. And because of all of that, ransomware, 57% more destructive in 2021 than it was in 2015. There are 30 million small businesses in the U.S., and over 66% of them have had at least one incident from 2018 to 2020. And over 50% of all cyber attacks happen to small businesses. And small businesses are bigger than we might think. We think of big businesses as General Electric, Target, all these retailers, banks, Anthem Health Insurance, those guys. But the small guy, these hackers understand that the small guy is not as protected as the big guy. He didn't have that big IT budget. He didn't have CTS on their side in many cases. So we talk about what's the top 5 occurrences from last year, 2021. Extortion. Extortion can be many different things. What I think about it, extortion, I saw some show on TV the other night, and they were talking about cyber porn, or revenge porn.
Right.
And this is, some compromising pictures of somebody in doing something maybe they'd rather have private. Somebody's hacked in, got that information, and then send you a nice email. Oh, by the way, we've got these really nice pictures of XYZ. Would you like to help us not send these out? Send us whatever in the money. Ransomware, we know what that is, okay? They come in, they encrypt your data, and then they offer you, as long as you send them some Bitcoin in whatever amount, they'll be happy to unencrypt it for you and give you the key. Identity theft, basic identity theft. You can ruin someone's life by stealing their identity. You can ruin their children's lives by stealing their identity and getting that off of the computer. Personal data breach, phishing attacks, and social engineering. Phishing attacks, I get so many spam emails, I don't even, I can't even open them all. I just send them to junk. And most of them are phishing attacks. They're just trying to get me to click on something. Hey Jeff, you've won this $300 gift card from Walmart. Click here on the link. Oh yeah, right, I'm gonna do that immediately. Then the social engineering thing, of course, we talked about that. So those are the big hits in the cyber insurance world. Now, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. Most business owners have insurance, okay? You have to have insurance to operate, really. Your customers demand it. Most customers have, sometimes, if it's a really small business, what's called a business owner's policy. That kind of wraps everything up into one little convenient blanket, puts umbrella coverage in there, and it throws all this little assorted coverages in there. And that's great, and sometimes it's really adequate for folks. But from a cyber perspective, if you have cyber insurance built into that policy, it's probably not going to help you in the event that you have really something bad happen. I go on to say gaps will exist, and they do exist in these policies. So standalone cyber policies, even though they've gone up 97%, they fill in all those gaps. They offer protection where you don't even know you have an exposure. They click all the lists now. They do require certain things, like we talked about multi-factor authentication. You can't get a standalone cyber policy unless you have multi-factor authentication. Nobody's going to write that. I wouldn't write it. So those are the things that standalone policies will get you. So, again, this is a very basic thing, and I don't need to go too in depth with all the underwriting procedures and everything for cyber insurance, but should I consider a standalone policy? I think at this day and time it's clear that you should, but these are the reasons you might. And this is what you need to do before you even try to do that. Have an IT provider, have CTS come in and do a risk assessment that he offered today. Take the time, spend the effort, and again, he says no cost to them, right? Let him come in, troubleshoot your system, and you might be surprised at the results, unfortunately. Once you get the recommendations, implement that. Then you have to develop a plan, a response plan, that if something like this occurs, that everybody knows what to do. Everybody that has access to any company information, even on their cell phone, company email, if that's all they're checking, make sure they're involved and they know what to do in case something funky happens. Who do you call first? Who do you call second? Do I disconnect everything immediately? Things like that. Then once you determine that, then you need to engage a broker. Engage a good insurance broker, somebody that you trust. We would love to help you, but if you already have someone that you're working with, certainly work with those folks. Just make sure they have the expertise to help you. Make sure they have the right markets to help you, because there's 100 different companies that offer cyber insurance. There are only 10 that really do a really good job, in my opinion. And then out of the 10, only 3 are really what we use. So you need to talk to a broker, somebody that can help you with that. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Tommy, you mentioned before that the documents that you fill out when you have to apply for insurance, cyber insurance, and with renewals, we're seeing the documents for the renewals get much more in depth than they were. Last year they were 1 page. This year they're 3 pages. They're getting into your business now. They want to make sure you're not going to lead to a claim. But the insurance is there for accidents. We understand humans are fallible. So just keep that in mind when you talk to your broker. Thank you very much.
Within the last year, when you say, Ben, last year-ish, the questions that are popping up on those questionnaires are, you check yes, I have, then it's what do you have it on, right? And then you'll answer that, and then the next one is upload a copy of this. One recently we were doing, had to upload all of the endpoints and the update schedule. So every Windows update, when it was done, so you can see, are you doing it on time? Are you doing it late? Like, they can choose to review that data if they want within their renewals. The other thing we're seeing is, especially if on the higher risk, is if there is an incident, like, let's say you see like, hey, we had X amount of phishing attempts stopped, right? All of those pieces of information saying, hey, there was an attempt made, and to give you an example for us, if somebody tried to get into Richard's Insurance Group and they tried to get through his email account, and we see that there was, even if it was a successful attempt from Brazil, as an example, we're able to see that, lock the account, and we call him. Are you in Brazil? But that would be considered an incident. Well, those incidents, some insurance companies are required, even though it led to nothing. We did the investigation, nothing happened, it was locked. All that information has to be transferred to the insurance company, even if there was no incident that needed to be paid out on. So depending on the value or the level of risk that they have, we're seeing a lot of things change. And when we get customers that'll call us and they're like, can you do this for us? Our IT company basically, they fix stuff when it breaks and they turn on MFA for us, but they can't provide this level of information to, our insurance company. And that's where we're like, well, that's our minimum. Those forms to fill out are not fun. Ben and I have spent more than an hour or 10 in the conference room with the managers and with other people. And every time we get a questionnaire like that, we all sit down and review it. And then we've come up with we talked about those 13, what ours looks like. Because, that's a good one. Like, that would matter. And then we add that to us. And there's some that we're like, oh, come on. Everybody's got that. Like, do you drive a car? Yes. So we leave those out. But the things that matter, we build our best practices around the level 1 is what we call it, which is being able or having the ability to get insurance. And that's our entry level. If somebody comes to us, we start. Then we can move up to high tech, HIPAA, NIST, CMMC. We can go on up depending on what you're doing. And there's a lot of manufacturers around here who do work for DOD or NOG or contracts related to that, and they're required to meet those same levels of compliance that the big groups are. And we're able to come and bring that to the small business at a price that is reasonable, because we're not based out of DC, right, doing that. So that's something that we really pride ourselves on, is understanding where we are, where the industry is, and where our customers land. And it makes us really proud to know that there's no other company that we're aware of, especially when we're near here, that has those kind of best practices. Well, those kind of best practices, to go back to my intro, are why we're ranked and why we're on boards and why we're involved in that because of what we do and how we do it. Because we're not there just to fix the printer, although we can do that. Our help desk is in-house. We can help fix the day-to-day stuff, and our response time is better than most. However, our focus, our underlying purpose of being here is to protect and help our customers, not worry about IT.
Yeah. So they finished that really fast. So that means we have a full hour still available for this seminar. So we're going to open up the floor for you guys. I know I saw you guys take some notes. I was in the back. I was watching you. So if you have any notes, thoughts, or questions, now is the time to ask. These are now your resource for all things cyber insurance, cyber security. So who has any questions or any takeaways that you're like, hey, I did not know about this and I want to know more?
I have a question. For either of you, how would you rate Google as your server for email and for data storage on the cloud for job file or construction company?
Right, so two things. I don't think Google is bad. I don't think Apple's bad. I don't think Amazon's bad. It's kind of like that firewall in a box. If you don't set it up properly and maintain the proper level, then it's going to be bad. But that could be anything. So I think it really depends on how the architecture is set up. And the other thing that we focus on is what we call Sas Alerting, because that's considered software as a service when it's in the cloud like that. So what kind of alerting, what kind of data would you know if people were trying to log in as you from Brazil? And what would that action plan look like? Most people who are using that don't have our level of suite and technology behind it to be able to show you that or to build the plan around it. Like some of our basic plans are, if something that what we call geolocated couldn't happen, is to lock the account. The same as if you put the password in wrong so many times, or even a successful login. If you logged in Lynchburg today and logged in Brazil tomorrow, it's going to lock it out because it's physically impossible for such things to happen. So I think setup like that is important. And depending on, if you're manufacturing, depending on who you're making your manufacturing parts for, will also determine some of how I would recommend your structure being. But just like cyber insurance, not everything is the same. There's no standard. So it depends. I mean, if you've got to meet certain requirements that require the ability to show chain of custody for a document, a print for this little O-ring that goes on a missile that's part of DoD, now you have to meet the same level and be able to produce those documents. So I don't think there's any problem with it. I think just making sure that's managed properly would do it. There's one that happened yesterday.
I was going to say about what Jeff was talking about. The Los Angeles school system was ransomware, and all their data was uploaded, and they pretty much said, we're not going to pay it. And as far as identity theft, can you imagine all the children that go there? All their identities are now pretty much just available for sale on the dark web. And you're talking about they can start credit cards and everything else, buy houses, cars. Kids graduate high school with trashed credit.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Huge. So have you guys seen the movie, what is the name of that movie where the guy loses his identity? And I'm trying to think, the female actress was stealing it, and she was in Florida, and he was, so that whole movie.
It was identity theft.
Right, I think it's called identity theft. That whole movie, the guy that happened to was a keynote speaker at one of the security events I went to. And he talked about how simple it would have been to protect himself from that, but he just didn't know. And that he was arrested and was put in jail for this, even though he didn't do it. There's another gentleman here on the identity theft that I met at a Campbell County event, and his identity was stolen years ago. And he said he still gets stuff now, where they pulled somebody over in California and they had a driver's license with all his information on it, but the other person's picture. Because all that information, once it's out, it goes for sale and it's really cheap and it ends up being free on the dark web. But identity theft's a big thing. So I'll take the liberty to go and say, I feel like safety has to happen in your house first, and not just your business. I mean, your house, your personal, I'm Tommy Vaughn, period, I'm nothing else. I have what on this device? I have my Snapchat, I have my TikTok, I have my Facebook, I have all these different things. So if somebody's like, happy birthday, Tommy. Oh, guess what? Now everybody knows my birthday, right? And then, if I'm like, hey, Mom, thank you, love you, whatever, and she's got her name and her maiden name, right? Oh, guess what? They got that. And then, oh, look at these pictures from high school. Oh, look, yearbook, 1995. I graduated high school in 95. So really quickly, you've given so much information freely out. And then most people don't have any kind of protection or mobile device management or any kind of policies related to this device. And this device, you don't have to log in multiple times to Facebook. It's got a token. I steal that token. I'm on a computer in Brazil as you. I don't know your password, but I can do everything as you. So let's just say your Facebook account. Facebook won't help you if it gets taken. So you don't have anything, you don't have it properly set up, or somebody's got a keylogger and they learn what your password is, and you have your two-factor authentication set up as email, which is the worst, because if your email gets compromised, they're sending the code to your email that's already compromised, and the bad guys got that too. So there's certain levels of structure. Not everybody needs to be super strict. We try to work with everybody on what's best for them. But when you look through that and you steal somebody's Facebook, they can't get in anymore. So the first thing the hacker does is turn on two-factor. You can't call Meta. You have to create a new Facebook account and message them and ask for help. And I have known 0 people to get any help from them. So generally they deactivate the account. They take all that data, they pull all that data down, they research it, and then when they're ready to go live, right, they'll put that data back on, they'll reactivate the account, and all of your friends all of a sudden get a message from you about something, right? So then you click on it because they've done all the social engineering. And then because you didn't care, I don't have anything important, it doesn't matter, I don't check anything on my phone, all of a sudden, all these other people are being affected by the fact that you didn't care, right? And didn't take any steps to protect all those people's data, because those people trust and love you, right? So, I could go on and on. It's really sad, but there are high-rise buildings. This is not political. There's high-rise buildings in other countries that are packed full of cubicles. And those people's job is just to do the things we talked about. It is literally like top of a Fortune 500 business in other countries, and it's legal. Right, call centers of just that.
Help you get your data back after you pay.
Right, it's absolutely ridiculous. But this is the world we live in. And you talk about like warfare. It really is, and it's unfortunate because it is the best way to do business. And it's also really easy to keep yourself safe. The LastPass seminar, I would encourage people to jump on that. That's an example of what that is. It's password management. If you guys are familiar with password management. If you save anything to your browser so it remembers your password, automatically fills it out, that's not encrypted. So when I do my assessment and I click on it, it's going to pull all the data out of your browser, right? So imagine I'm going to be able to look at you and tell you that you have X amount of sites with the same password. Oh, and here's the password, right? So all this information is right there. So what can you do to avoid it is to have it all encrypted. So LastPass allows you to put data in, encrypt it at a high level, the high level password, high level two-factor, not your basic. But you're able to store all that data there, and it will populate it when it's called to populate within the browser. So you can, instead of just using your browser, you can hit the little icon in the browser for LastPass, type in whatever, or start typing in whatever site you want to go to, and it'll pop up, and you just click enter, it fills it out, clicks yes for you, and logs you in. So it actually saves you steps. And when I do my assessment and I click on it, there's nothing there, right? So, and it works on your phones, it works on everything. And at CTS, any customer of ours, on our IT side, anybody that has an active email with our email protection gets 5 users in a family account for themselves. So we can't see it, but at home, how many times do you get, hey, what's the password for Netflix? Or, whatever it is, you can share passwords within that group just like you can in the company, but it's just within your group. And then everybody can have that saved on their phones, their browsers, their iPads, doesn't matter, it works across all those platforms. And then there's another level of security that you're not going to get compromised because you have something saved in your browser.